everybody's worst nightmare to have this situation where your child is missing. So could you just tell us a little bit about Jesse and what happened?
So Jesse graduated from Wesleyan University in May of 2017, and he wanted to be a doctor. He got accepted to Sidney Kimmel Medical College, which is the college of Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia. He is a dual American and Canadian citizen, and he really liked the American educational system, and he wanted to go to Jeff. He loved the school. So he asked them for a deferral because he wanted to see the world a little bit before he buckled in, and he knew that it was going to be a really long road to become a doctor. And they said, the dean wrote back and said, Jesse, we want you to come when you want to come. So they gave him a deferral. And we planned together an 8-month backpacking trip. He worked 3 jobs the summer of 2017, and we booked a very bare bones 8-month trip from September the 24th until May the 15th. So September 24th of 2017 to May the 15th of 2018. His plan was to go through South America, culminating in a trek through Torres del Paine in Patagonia, where you have to book campgrounds in advance. So we had booked it all. Some of them are free, some of them are about $10, but we booked it all. And then Christmas, he was supposed to fly to India for a friend's wedding. They had planned the wedding, a friend from school. They had planned it for the beginning of January. He was going to spend a week there, a week in, that was in New Delhi, a week in Mumbai, and then he was flying to Mandalay, Myanmar, and he was going to work his way through Thailand, and he had a flight booked home on May 14th. So he left for Lima. I took him to the airport on September the 24th. He flew to Toronto and then to Lima. We'd booked Loki Hostel in advance. He stayed there for 3 nights. We were in constant touch. I had to download books for him on his Kindle, and he wanted all the traveling books, and he had a list of what he wanted to read. It was a struggle for him to bring a Kindle because he really liked papers, and he had a journal to write in. And I didn't really know this sequence of events until we established it afterwards, but he took a bus, an overnight bus, on September the 28th from Lima to Huaraz. It's a town that's about a 6-hour drive north of Lima, and it's on the edge of Huascarán National Park, and it's the Cordillera Blanca Mountains. And there's beautiful trekking there. So he took a bus overnight. He got off the bus. He did not stay where he booked. We thought he did because he had made a reservation, and he had Instagrammed a picture from the doorstep with the dog that was owned by the manager of the hostel. There was some conflicting reports that were given by that manager at the beginning, and I ended up having to file criminal charges of forcible disappearance against this guy. And we did a luminol search, and ultimately we found out once I was able to get Apple to release the information. I mean, this is a very, very long story. Apple would not release information for about 3 weeks. I finally got a phone call from the lawyer who's the chief privacy officer who dealt with the San Bernardino case, Lisa Ole, when I was in Peru. She finally called me, and she didn't want to release the information because of their privacy issues. And she said, if Jesse turns his phone on, he won't be able to log into his Apple ID. And I said, I'm not worried about him logging in. My son's been missing for 3 weeks, so I'm worried that he's not alive. So they finally gave us access. And from the geolocalization of the pictures, Jesse's friends in Montreal, this amazing group of boys, led by Jonathan Finkel, and I could give you all the names, they created a timeline, and they figured out where Jesse was, and then we found out where he stayed. So he stayed at Casablanca Hostel. He left there. I watched videos. I've seen all the CCTV videos, the municipal camera videos of him leaving the bus station, walking towards Kame House, the first hostel, off camera. We finally picked him back up when we knew where he stayed. And this took a long time. This is not something we did in a day. This was the first month that I was in Peru. We established the timeline where he left the hostel at 4:30 in the morning. He walked towards where they have communal transportation, and he took something, we don't know, up to the park, and he got off at the Cachapampa entrance. So this is a trek that is a 4-day, 3-night trek. You either do it from the west to the east or the east to the west. He did it from the west to the east, and he had bought a bus ticket, a return ticket from the other side. So he was determined to get there for his 12 soles, $3 bus ticket. He entered the park. There's no record of him entering the park because we've now determined, my Israeli team has determined that the people who were working at the park that day were not employees of the park. They provided forged records of the park, and they were negligent. So I'm currently instituting a civil lawsuit against the Huascarán National Park for negligence and a search that has effectively cost over $2 million so far. He entered the park. I don't know who he stayed next to the first night. The first stop is called Lama Corral. I stayed there. I stayed there the night of May 13th on Mother's Day when I did the trek. He must have continued on the next day, and he stayed the second night in Talipampa, which is the second stop. And there he camped next to two men from France who Magnus tracked down, finally, I think in January of 2018. And Jesse was suffering from altitude sickness. He had diarrhea, he was dehydrated, he was suffering from headaches, he had vision issues. He arrived there after dark, he was disoriented, he didn't know where he was because there's no markings on this trail, nothing. You could wander off and end up at El Pamaya, which is another mountain. You could end up on the Waiwash Trail, which is 12 days long. You start this hike at like 3,400 meters, and it goes up to 4,700 meters, which is almost Everest Base Camp. I took Diamox the first 2 times I went on the mountain. My body has acclimated since, but Jesse wasn't acclimated. He spent the night there. He didn't feel well, but then in the morning, he felt better, and they said he made coffee, and he said, I'm going to continue. They were heading west. They were coming down. They had come from the other side. So he started his trek on October the 1st. He started from Talipampa, and from there you go up to Punta Union, which is the peak, and then you come over the other side, and you spend one night at Perea, and then you come down at Vaqueria. Jesse started from there. Magnus has tracked down every person who saw him, every picture that has been on Instagram, everyone who had contact, every guide who worked, every donkey rider who worked, everybody who was there. People saw him. His pace was very slow, very, very slow. It took him about 8 hours to get to the last point where he was seen. I think it took me 2 hours to get there, or maybe less, and I'm not even in that great shape. He was last seen on October 1st at 3:30 p.m., sitting on the side about 1 kilometer down from Punta Union. And that's where the trail ends. My first team was Garda International. It's an American company that I hired the day that I reported Jesse missing. I did not report him missing on October the 1st. He was supposed to be in touch on October the 2nd, and I didn't want to be a helicopter parent when he wasn't. So I waited a few days. On October the 7th, I got a bill on my Apple ID. We have a family Apple ID for a trail expenses app for $1.99. So I said, okay, he must have Wi-Fi somewhere, and he's logging his expenses, which is what we always did. Log expenses, keep the bills, keep records. But then I didn't hear from him. And then the 7th became the 8th, and the 9th, and the 10th, and by the Saturday, I gave it a week, Saturday the 14th, I said something's wrong, because I've never not been in contact with him. His friends tell me when they were on the Adirondack Trail, he hiked up to get signal to text me, because we were very close. So on the 14th, I called Apple, and I said, where was he when he bought this app? And it took a number of calls before I found out that he didn't buy it on the 7th. He bought it on September the 28th, and there was a credit card issue, and it took that long. So that was when I called the embassies. I called the Canadian embassy, reported him as missing, had to go to the police station, make a missing persons report to trigger Interpol. Been dealing with a lovely detective, Isabelle Parisien, who's been handling the case for 17 months. And then I had to report him missing to the U.S. Embassy. And then Anne-Marie Boucher, whose son, Dylan Garber, was in school with Jesse and one of his best friends. They have this crazy tight group of friends. She called me and she said, we need to go to Lima and you need to hire Garda. And it's a company that they use. So she hired them. And she flew to Lima with me on the 16th, met with the embassies, headed to Juarez, and I conducted the searches for the first. I had a subcontractor from them, from Mexico City, but I ran the searches for the first month. Hired teams to search the river, teams to search the trails. The high altitude police did a little bit of searching. Then we managed to get a helicopter, so we did 4 days of helicopter searching. But it got to a point where I knew it wasn't working, and we needed something more advanced. And Mitch Garber and Anne-Marie Boucher had been vetting the next stage, and they said it's going to be Magnus. It has to be Magnus, Chelik Magnus. So November the 6th, I flew to Israel, and I hired them. And since then, they did, I don't even know, hundreds of days on the mountain. We're in the 8th phase right now, but they're getting close. Hundreds of days on the mountain, hundreds of hours of drone footage so that we could see if there's any disturbance in the soil. We did a remote operated vehicle search of all the water bodies to see if he had been thrown into the water. I separately, because I needed to do this, I did a glacier search with locals. We went up to see if he'd fallen into the crevasses. They rappelled on the glaciers. I did a canine human remains search with a dog handler out of Arizona who was trained in Flagstaff. Got some indications. So what I believe that Jesse suffered from altitude sickness, and it's cerebral edema, and you lose your judgment. And whether, he sat down on the side of the road and passed away there, or if someone came and helped him along, I believe someone hit him. Someone took his body and got scared, and they hit him. So the current state right now is that Magnus in phase 8 is covert. So they're covert, and they're going to figure this out, and they're getting much closer. And I'm about to institute a civil lawsuit against the Huascarán National Park for forgery of the documentation on August 30th. There's no record of anyone who entered on September 30th. Sorry. There was a forgery of the entry sheet from September 30th. They took the August 30th paper and they changed the date. So all of the tour companies who entered, and we have concrete evidence now of all the people who entered because they're all working with Magnus. The provings are nice, they're cooperative, they're generous, like they want to help, but the locals who are on the mountain, they're indigenous, they speak Quechua, it's a local language, and they're born into this job. Like they carry goods on the mules up and down the mountain, and they're terrified. But I have a reward that's out there for 100,000 soles, which is $30,000 US, that I put onto national proving TV back in October of 2017, and they won't even come forward for that because they're scared. They're just scared of the police, of the Peruvian National Police. So, because so many people have gone missing, I've been sent four different bodies, pictures of corpses. I know I can give you names of a number of people who are missing. It doesn't matter. There's so many who are missing. There's another girl from the US, 34-year-old. She's missing in Cusco. I'm in touch with her brother, trying to help him with my contacts. It's a dangerous place. It's not monitored. It's not well marked. It's scary. And people go missing. I was trekking there. I was never alone. But we helped people. I helped Americans that got lost off the trail. We were doing a search of a different area, and we were climbing across scree. It's like these rocks, and we were climbing sideways. I was with the dog trainer, and she's like an amazing, flexible person, and she showed me how to climb across this stuff. And we see these people who are there, and they're not supposed to be there. And they're like, "Where are we going?" I said, "You have to come this way. Like, come with us, because you don't know where you're going." So.
Anyway, listen, everybody would only dream to have a mom like you. You're inspirational for so many. I mean, it's like, how are you managing? How do you do it? Because you've done so much, more than any mom could possibly do. And I know you're continuing, and I'm glad that's close.
I feel that they're close. I feel that they're close. I really do. I don't have a choice. I'm not someone who could lie down and, I did it for periods of time. Don't get me wrong. I had periods of time where I couldn't get out of bed. But I have to find Jesse. It's not just for me. I need closure for everybody. His friends are suffering. His girlfriend is suffering. his sister is suffering, my mother is suffering, my father, died not knowing where Jesse is. My friends, my friend Jen, her kids grew up with my kids. Like, her daughter is a week apart. We met in prenatal class. The kids grew up together. We need to find him, and everyone wants to talk about him. Like, I spend a lot of time with his friends, and they tell me stories about him. I know all the crazy things that he did when he was younger, and it's the way that I stay close to Jesse. So when I need to feel stronger, I think about Jesse. I talk to his friends about stories. I talk to my friends. I talk to my family. I try to stay close to him because he would do this for me. Like, he would do this for me. We went on 5 ski trips together. Our last trip was in Whistler in 2017. And we just loved being outdoors and spending time together. And he was a little bit more adventurous than me. Maybe I was more adventurous when I was 24. But I can't leave him on the mountain. I can't leave him on the mountain. So we've created this garage sale / sale of new items / bake sale / community event where we're just going to sell anything that can raise money, and all the proceeds go directly to the Missing Children's Fund, Jesse Fund, because all of the invoices are paid directly out of there. That's who sends all the money to Magnus, and I've got quite a balance left to pay, and I need them to keep going. And they have to make money as well. They can't just do this without, they have shareholders. I understand. Like, I've gotten to know them as people, so I need to make sure that they get paid for this. So this event is just going to raise money for that. And I've had incredible generosity. So in addition to everybody bringing all their stuff and this garage sale that's going to happen on St. Patrick's Day, one of Jesse's favorite days, from 9 to 4 at the chalet, and you can drop off 3 drop-off times, I'm getting lots of new items. So I have Toomey luggage, brand new, beautiful Toomey luggage from Jesse's girlfriend's mother, Alisa, who is their VP of design in New York. I have a ton of merchandise from Joel Teitelbaum, from iStore, all these wonderful Bose high-end items. I have 2 big screen TVs. I have paintings. I have dinner at the Drake 150 in Toronto for my friend Jeff, $150 worth. I have fur coats. I have small electronics. I have gift certificates from restaurants all over the city, from probably every hairdresser and makeup artist, because everyone just wants to help, and they just want to, I don't want to ask people for money. I want them to just, if they can help, help. This bazaar is a place where people can come. I want to buy and sell. I want to share and talk and be a community, because I could not do this without the community. I didn't have $2 million. I mean, I liquidated what I have, just have my house with a massive mortgage, but every RSP, every TFSA, everything has gone in, every credit card, but I still don't have that much money. Missing Children's Fund has generated like $1 million, and the GoFundMe, together with Facebook, another couple $100,000. Thank God for these people. $18 here, $20 there, $100,000 here. I wouldn't be able to do this. This is a community. Like, Jesse has done what I would not have thought anyone could do. He's restored my faith in humanity, and he has gotten an entire community together. People say to me, Stefan said this to me. He says, I think of your son every day. I put tefillin on. The 3rd tefillin I put on is for Jesse. He puts it on, I think, for his 2 family members, and then for Jesse. He doesn't know Jesse, but Jesse was this amazingly empathetic, curious, creative, warm-hearted kid who was like a lion protecting his friends. That's how they saw him. And everybody just wants to help, because it's inconceivable that it happened to him, because everybody would have gone to him for help.